Well, hello, Dixie Belle paint fans. How are you today? It is Melissa from the Top Drawer RVA coming to you live. Hello, just my hands from my dining room studio where we sit together every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and play with some paint. And I have a new project today. So I thought that this would be a great way for you to be able to see what's going on. You might not see my face, even though I am all cutesied up and makeup on and hair done and ready to go. It just didn't work out that way. This is an easier vision for you to see what I'm working on without having to sit in front of the camera. So welcome. If you're new joining me for the first time, I am live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. I'm a Dixie Belle brand ambassador and I like to create pretty things, and we are live here every Wednesday at 3. So what are we doing today? Well, I have this attaché case. Do you remember the 80s when all the working men and women in the world had to carry an attaché case to work to bring home their papers before the days of computers where you could store everything online? The days of paper and pens and all the things. I got this from my local thrift store for just a couple dollars, and I actually really like a box makeover. I like a box makeover, number one, because it's fast, and number two, because you can do some really fun stuff with a suitcase or a box. And this little attaché case was begging for a makeover. So it's got the little clasps here, which are very tarnished. You can see how they're tarnished up. Don't worry, when I'm actually done painting this project, I will come back in and shine them with gilding wax. Gilding wax is an oil-based product that shines up old hardware. I left the handle because it's plastic. We're not fancy over here, it's just plastic. So I left this color because we're gonna go a little vintagey, we're gonna go a little retro, and we're gonna work on a small project today. So what did I do to this piece to get it started? Well, I had to use something called Bonding Boss. Have you heard of Bonding Boss before? I'm sure you have. If you know me, if you're a Dixie Belle fan, you know that you used to have something called Slick Stick. Slick Stick was your gripping primer for anything slick or shiny. Being a plasticized material, this thing needed some sort of a bonding primer. So I used Bonding Boss on this. I didn't even use 2 full coats. I just used 1 because I'm really not thinking that this would actually get touched and handled that much. I just really wanted to know that my paint was going to adhere well. So Bonding Boss comes in white, gray, and clear. You can find this on the Dixie Belle paint page, which I have linked in the description of this video, and you can find everything that I'm going to use today in the description of the video. So Bonding Boss went on here because this brown case was kind of like a plasticized material. You can kind of see a little tiny bit of it here. It's supposed to look like leather, but y'all, it's plastic. It's not leather. The trim on this piece was like sewn on. So we're going to be using Woodubend today, and I have a plan for this piece. So this paper right here, this decoupage, and listen, decoupage, whatever you want to say, no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone. You can say however you like. Decoupage, tomato, I don't mind. So this paper is actually called Old Postcard. Old Postcard is an A3 rice paper, and when I say rice paper, you can kind of see the fibers on the back of this paper. This makes this paper a little bit stronger than some of the regular decoupage paper that you might be used to working with. It's going to not tear very easily, and it's super easy to apply. So this is called Old Postcard. Old Postcard is 1 sheet, 1 design, and it measures in at 11.7 inches by 16.54 inches. Or if you need centimeters for my Canadian folks, 29.7 by 42.1. All right, Old Postcard. I'm going to take my paper and lay it across the side here. This is the base for my project. So it's almost the perfect size to fit the exact top of this little case, right? It's almost the exact size. You can see how, remember here, see how this is, I actually had this sitting up on a paint can and I made a mark, so I had to like sand it back in order to get rid of a ridge. But can you see how you can see through this paper a little bit? You can see through any paper that's really light if you put something light or dark underneath it. So we're actually going to be painting this case first, and then we're going to be putting this paper on. And if I can get to it enough in time, we're going to be adding this beautiful Woodubend trim all around the edges. Okay, let's jump in. I'm going to move my paper over, and we are going to start. So what color am I choosing? Well, when I work with a paper that is, you know, light in value, like this paper is fairly light in value. I look for the lightest part The lightest part of the paper is my clue for the color that I want to be the most vibrant. If I were to come in and paint this case in black, everything is going to look more grayscale in color. So I don't want that. I want this color to stay nice and vibrant. If you look at it really close, there's actual little writing on there, little scribbles, very vintagey, super cute. So if I look at that flower right there, I know that I can pick any one of my lighter tones. This just happens to be Burlap. Burlap is one that I use very often. And we're just going to paint on an even coat of Burlap. You don't even need to use a full coat, to be honest. Underneath where you're putting that paper, because I've already put a primer that's white, and I'm just going to go over top of this with a little bit of chalk mineral paint in Burlap. I'm basically just building coverage up so that when I put my paper over top of this, you're going to be able to focus on the paper and the print on the paper. You're not going to focus on like the darkness of the color underneath, okay? So think about that when you apply your decoupage paper. I really want you to think about how you can keep that paper as vibrant as possible, because when you actually come in here and apply the paper over top, which we're going to do today, and I will show you, you're going to see a difference. Now, this is the bottom of the case. I've actually prepared this little attache case to be ready for me to paint on today. So let me get rid of my speaker wire, number one, and number two, flip this over. So I'm going to actually repaint the base. So right now, even though it's wet, this is like a vinyl underneath. It's not going to stick that hard. I'm going to flip it over. Normally what you would do is wait for that to get dry and then you would be working. So ignore the fact that I'm literally flipping it over. Ta-da! Your paint has dried. This is a dry one coat of Burlap. Now, I did come in with a piece of sandpaper around these sewn edges because the edges were like, it's plastic, y'all. It's plastic, and it's not even perfect plastic. Like there's some small broken bits on the edges and the corners. I just didn't want the pokey stitching to come out and be raised. So this is one even coat of Burlap over top of one even coat of Bonding Boss. Now I'm going to show you the difference of how beautiful this paper looks when you put on a nice light color like that. Can you see the difference? Before, when I showed you this paper over top of that darker tone, you couldn't really see these details pop. Everything looked kind of muddy. So adding a nice light color underneath, and to be honest, you could probably go even lighter, is going to give you a nice base for your paper. So let's apply this paper and talk about how I apply paper the easy way. First things first, some people like to rip their edges. And by ripping, I mean literally coming in and ripping their edges, or wetting the edges with a damp or wet paintbrush in order to rip the paper. It's up to you. This paper is almost the exact size of the project we're working on today. So I'm just going to cut out this old postcard paper and remove the white edging, which is always on every paper because it's a printed paper, correct? You can't have a paper without white edging. It's always there. So just know you have a couple options in ripping and or cutting. It's up to you. And I don't even have to be that precise because I'll be using the Woodubend around the edges of my project. Now, if this paper was larger than the item I'm working on, say I was working on an attache case that was a lot smaller in size and I wanted to add paper, I could have add this paper, wait for my clear coat that I'm going to use to apply it to get dry, and then gently sand back that paper so that the edges rip just to the exact size of the case, of the box. Now, this is the front of my box. I don't think it matters, to be honest with you, which way this paper goes down, because this is just a decor box, right? Like this could be technically either way, but since I'm standing and I'm facing this way, this is the way that I'm going to do it. There are a couple ways that you can apply paper and have it be nice and smooth. Do you want to see my magic trick? Dun, dun, dun. Plastic wrap, saran wrap, moving wrap, whatever you want to call this. This is just wrapping, what you would use to wrap up your leftover dinner. Grab that and keep this handy. This is going to be my magical tool for what I use to keep this paper as wrinkle-free as possible. I think that overall what I hear from people when it comes to applying paper is that they get a lot of wrinkles and they really stress out about the wrinkles. Well, I'm going to show you the way that I apply the paper that works the best for me, okay? And everybody does this differently. What you're going to need is your saran wrap, your plastic wrap, whatever you like to call it. You're going to need a spray misting bottle filled with water. You're going to need an application of a brush of some sorts. It doesn't really matter to me what sort of a brush you use. And you're going to choose a clear coat. For my clear coat choice, I like to go with satin. If I use a gloss, because there is satin, matte, and gloss, right? If I use gloss, this is going to be shiny. I'm not a shiny fan. I want this little attache case to look super old and vintagey. So that to me means satin. Could you use gloss? By all means, if that's what you like, you can. Could you use a matte or flat applicator as well? Of course. I find that using the matte, the flat, doesn't really give the paper as much adherence as I like. So if you were to ask me what my favorite medium for any decoupage paper is going to be, my reply would be most definitely clear coat and satin. This is water-based. Yes, it looks white. Yes, it looks milky in there. It's not. When it dries, it's clear. Okay, first step to apply any decoupage paper is to gently spray mist the back. Gently. Can you see how gently I did that? It's not sopping wet. It's just a little bath, a little drench to my paper. Why do I do that? Does anybody know? I drench the back of the paper a little bit with water in order to stretch it a little bit. I want it to become a little bit stretchy. Next up is to take my clear coat medium in satin and apply generously. I like to kind of overdo my clear coat. So generously apply my clear coat onto the area where I'm going to adhere the paper. This is the same principle that you would use if you were applying this to a giant dresser. It's the same every single time. All it is a matter of preference. I just had a little hair on there, puppy dog hair. Where'd you go? I got it. Okay, so now I have applied my clear coat medium to the area where the paper is going to stick. I have wet the back of my paper with a little bit of water from my spray misting bottle. I feel a little area to get a little bit dry. If I want to wet it a little bit more, this is just going to take my paper and make it nice and stretchy. This also makes it movable. Like, look, oh no, I've put my paper down in the wrong spot. Well, because I dampened the back, I can easily pick it up and move it around. So what I'm going to do is lean over. Hopefully I don't get too much of my arm in the way. And I'm going to push this paper. I like to kind of start in the middle. We're going to try and get it as even as possible to the middle. Okay? Because this paper is almost an exact fit, just not perfect. That's pretty darn close. I like that. So now that my paper has been positioned in the area that I like, I'm going to grab my magical tool, which is my saran wrap. I'm going to gently, from the middle out, start to push my paper so that the wrinkles disappear. All I'm doing right now is pushing this paper along the edge. Now I didn't come over the edge this far. Let's apply a little bit more clear coat over here just to make sure. We're going to grab, and then I'm going to grab my saran wrap and gently push it over the edge. By using saran wrap, what it does is it allows you like almost like a smooth glide. If I were to come in here and really push a brush onto my paper, what's going to happen? Well, you could actually move some of the ink that you see on the paper, right? Because this is printed rice paper. So this ink is printed on one side only, the side that I'm manipulating. If I were to push my brush around, you know, really mash that brush, you take the risk of any of this color that's so gently applied on such a thin rice paper lifting. I don't want it to lift. So now my paper has been applied to the piece. There's no wrinkles, right? Like I'm looking at it going, wow, that's really smooth. That's a really good layout. You can see those little rice fibers, you can see the words, you can see the entire pattern because it's on a like-minded color. My next step would be to take my clear coat and gently, because I don't want to manipulate the print, correct? I want to gently push that paper, especially around the edges, and seal it down with a nice clear coat of satin, beautiful water-based. It'll give me a slight shine. And what that has done now is sealed in my work. Okay, so now I'm looking at this going, I can still see that milky finish, right? It's a little bit wet. That milky finish will dissipate and it will go away, and it will leave me with a nice clear decoupage paper with no wrinkles. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So pretty, so pretty. So now you can look at my box and go, but wait, Melissa, this doesn't reach all of your corners. Well, enter Woodubend moldings. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, for those of you that are new watching a Dixie Belle live for the first time, you might wonder about what is a molding? What are you talking about? If you go to the Dixie Belle website, which I've linked in the description, you will see a link to head to their homepage. And on their homepage, you're going to see a drop down called Tools. Under Tools, you're going to find many Woodubend moldings. Why do I love Woodubend moldings? Well, because they are like jewelry for whatever it is that you're making. You can add Woodubend in giant medallions. You can add Woodubend in stars and hearts and cute little flowers. I mean, the options are literally endless. This is called a Woodubend trim molding. Now, if you need the number, if you're looking for this specific one, this is Woodubend trim number 718. Okay, it arrives in a pack of 2. This Woodubend, can you hear that? It's hard, it's rigid. You can't use it in this state, but I'm going to show you how you can use it, because you only need a few simple tools in order to get this stretched out and be able to be cut and placed on the edges of my paper. Okay, it's very simple. I'm gonna have to move my case a little bit out of the way because we need to get out my heat gun, and you're gonna learn a little bit about Woodubend molding today, which is honestly so fun. So fun. All right, so we have this section right here. Maybe move it a little bit further so you can see. Perfect. Okay, so this is actual wood. This is hard, rigid wood. How do you get it to be soft and be able to be stretched out and manipulated? Well, that is easily done by adding heat. All you need to do to make this a usable product is to add heat, and it becomes bendable, malleable, and shapeable. Let me show you. Please excuse the noise from my heat gun, but this is the only way that I can heat it up and show you exactly what I mean. So on a bigger medallion, I would be heating up the back of my Woodubend molding. But since this is a trim roll, you kind of have to use a little bit of all of it to heat up underneath. Once you start to heat it up, it starts to move, right? Can you see how it went from hard and rigid to soft and bendable? This becomes very easy to manipulate. I'm going to pull out the length and width of my attaché case. If your Woodubend happens to break because you are trying to manipulate it before it's warm enough, that's okay. You can easily and simply piece it back together. And you can find these trim rolls in any size, from very thick and very wide to very thin. And I use this a lot for edges and repair or missing veneer even. You can use this on a ton of stuff. Okay, so now I'm gonna look here and go, okay, so what my plan is to actually frame in this paper. I think that I do need to do the full square versus just the sides. I mean, I thought about just doing the sides, but then I might have to paint in the paper. I think what I'm going to do is actually create a frame for this piece. So when it's not warm, you can no longer bend it. So what I'm going to do is just gently measure with my fingers and kind of see how long it needs to be. So in my brain, this Woodubend needs to be around right here on this loop. What I'm going to do is lay it down flat and then heat up that section so that I can cut it. All right? You can see that I've actually just broken it, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix it. It's super easy to cut when warm. All right, so this Woodubend has actually just kind of split in half, but it's easily placed back together. I just want to make sure I've got my correct measurement. That's this spot right here. You can cut your Woodubend with scissors, with a sharp knife, with whatever you like, because it's very easy to cut when it's hot, okay? So now what I'm going to do is actually just flip this over and heat up the back and get it nice and flat. Once it's nice and flat, we can add glue. And then the glue is what's going to adhere to my piece. You can also paint your Woodubend before application or after. You're not locked in. You can choose whatever you like. So I want to get it like as flat as possible before I jump in and try and stick it onto my suitcase. So how do you adhere your your Woodubend to your piece? That is just simply wood glue. So I'm going to start with this piece because I've got two here, and I'm going to take it. I've already heated it up, right? It's bendy, and I'm going to look at my box and think, okay, I'm going to actually go straight along this edge and push it down. Now, you can only move this Woodubend when it's warm. You cannot bend it when it's cold. I actually think I'm going to cut this excess off. Where's my little knife? I've got an excess amount of paper that I don't need. So I can just cut that with a knife because that's the part I don't need. Let's not chop my fingers off on live camera. We don't want that. There, perfection. So now I've got my Woodubend trim on my little piece, right? On my little attache case. You can see how I'm pushing it down with my fingers. I'm actually going to heat this up one more time to make sure that it's nice and warm. I'm going to apply my wood glue. You don't need a ton, you really don't. I usually overdo it, I'm not gonna lie. I usually add way too much. Now remember, we broke this Woodubend because there was actually a small crack in it. So I'm just gonna gently place it back together and continue to push it down onto my project. Once it's down onto my project, I'm gonna heat it one more time to make sure that it's stuck and fast. And you can't even tell where that Woodubend break was, especially when you paint it. So now that my Woodubend is on my piece, I'm going to heat it one more time. There's glue all over me now. Sticky, 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 sticky glue. And I'm just going to really push together that seam where I had the crack in my Woodubend. If you'd like, you could tape it. You could tape it down if I was on a vertical surface, but I'm not. This is a nice flat surface. So let me move my heat gun out of the way and get my case nice and flat again so that you can see exactly how this goes down. See how it goes down nice and straight? And it's nice edging. It's really going to frame this in well so that when I paint this box, the top of this piece becomes a piece of functional art. So with the edges, I've seen where people can like chop the edges on an angle, which I might do. I might actually lay the next piece right over top here and then chop it on an angle so that it stays looking kind of like a picture frame, if that makes sense. Let's do that. I'm going to grab my heat gun and continue heating up this piece because now that it's not warm anymore, it's hard again. Okay, so I'm going to take this Woodubend. It needs to go this way, right? Like I want it to look the same as the other side. And I want to see where I'm going to cut it. It's going to be about here. I need to heat up a little bit more. All right, and I'm just going to take my scissors and cut that Okay, so now that my Woodubend is actually just still warm and malleable, I'm going to take my knife. I'm going to hit this again with my heat gun, and I'm going to cut both of them at the same time. So for this, I have a sharp knife. I haven't even glued this piece down yet. First cut is going to be through this first layer. That means removing that piece. And then second cut, because it's still warm, hopefully can be through the second piece, and I can remove that. And then what's going to happen is when I apply my glue, let's heat it up one more time. I need it to be nice and bendy so I get my line straight. I'm going to apply my glue. I'm going to come in real close to that edge. And I'm going to stick my Woodubend together on the corner, making a seamless edge, placing it down, straightening it as I go along because I don't want it to be crooked, and repeating the process this way as well. So once you have your Woodubend down and in the section you want, these two areas are joined together, I'm going to just heat it up one more time, make sure it's stuck on there, and press down. Perfection. So now we have a joined edge of the Woodubend. What do you think? Super cute, super cute. I'm going to continue this process, and we're going to continue my frame of my Woodubend. So let's work on this side. So what I'm going to have to do is heat up again. It doesn't take long. This is very thin. So once I kind of measure it out with my eyeballs, I can cut it. So we're going to cut this one right here. Okay, now remember how in the corner I merged them together? And in order to cut them so that they are merged together, I had to heat it up quite a bit because the knife works smoother when it's hot. So that's hot. And FYI, I got this knife, this nice sharp knife, at the dollar store. The Dollar Tree had really nice cutting sharp knives, which for me is a treat because, can I tell you, I am really not good at taking care of my knives. I cut things that I should not cut when it comes to my Woodubend and other things that are not as forgiving of the sort. So again, I'm going to cut through the second layer that I've got right here. Try not to chop my own arm off because that wouldn't make some good video content, would it? Again, if it feels tight, like it feels hard, I'm going to heat it up a little bit more. The hotter it is, the easier it is to cut. Where's my line? Right there. Are you all watching this with bated breath thinking, please don't chop your fingers off today? We didn't tune in to Dixie Belle to chop fingers off. We tuned in to enjoy the process and have some fun. I actually need to cut a little bit more. I don't want it to sit out so far. All right, so now when I put these two together, I'm going to be able to join that up and then glue this down. So remember, it's been sitting, it's not hot anymore. I'm gonna have to heat this up again to make sure that it's nice and bendy. And applying my wood glue. Doesn't matter which brand of wood glue you use. And I'm gonna get right up into that corner so that I can stick it down nice and close. Pushing it together kind of merges the product, if that makes sense. It's like it just becomes so much easier to work with when it's nice and warm. And straightening my little Woodubend trim roll as I go along because it's still hot, creating the frame. Perfection. Perfection. What do you think? So cute, right? So cute. Now I'm going to throw you all a curveball. Oh, look it, I knocked it over. I'm going to throw you all a curveball. In my brain, for aging this vintage attache case, in my brain, I'm thinking the color choices, I'm actually going to use red to age, and this trim might be blue. What do we think of red and blue contrasting colors? Are we a fan of that? Do you think that that's a good idea? Or do you think that's something maybe a little too wild? I think it's going to be kind of fun. I mean, like I'm talking like a deep dark red. I grabbed a couple different colors from Dixie Belle. This is a muscadine wine. I was thinking of getting right in the edge and then maybe even bleeding it out to a little bit of pink cottage door. And then this trim, possibly in a beautiful dark Bunker Hill blue with some black wax. What do we think of that color scheme? Is that too wild and crazy, or is it just perfect enough? Because wild and crazy is my jam. I like wild and crazy. So I kind of want to do a small little box, the most colorful it could be. Because why shouldn't life be colorful and fun? And this little attache case was like $4. $4! And I find that when I paint these fun little boxes, people really like them. They go over very, very well. People tend to really like them. Let me know what you think of that color scheme. Okay, one more little line of Woodubend trim to fill in the blank here. You eyeball it and measure. If you are a more practical person and you feel like you could measure this with a measuring tape, all the power to you. But guess what? I'm not that kind of a girl. I am a eyeball it, measure however I like, that, which usually means I'm not a very good baker because I don't measure things properly. The banana bread I made the other week did not taste very good. Did I eat it anyways? Yes, I did. It was just very dense. I didn't do very well with the baking powder measuring. So, c'est la vie. It is what it is. I'm going to heat up this corner and we're going to cut through the Woodubend to join our edges one more time. It's hot stuff over here. I'm just going to push with my sharp knife, which after today won't be the sharpest knife anymore. That's one edge. And cut through the second one without losing any digits today. That's success. That's going to work well to be pushed together. Let's work on this little corner over here. I'm going to heat it up one more time. Cut through one edge. Again, looking at my line underneath, eyeballing it, hoping for the best, Remove that, and we have our trim. Perfect. Now, let me tell you something about Woodubend. If by chance one of my corners seems a little sharp, or I don't want it as sharp as it is, you can sand your Woodubend. Did you know that? You can sand your Woodubend. You can sand the edges so that they are a perfect fit. And I will probably do that to just round them a little bit, and I'll show you how. So now that I've heated that up, I'm going to apply my glue. I'm going to get kind of into those corners because I want to really make it stick. And I'm going to slide it into place. The last piece of my little frame puzzle. Once it's down, you're going to want to remember to heat it one more time, right? You want to make sure that it's nice and secure on there. Perfection. So now you have learned all about Woodubend, how a trim roll works, and how you can use it to frame in your projects. Let's talk about sanding. Now I have a couple of different grits of sandpaper over here. This is just a really slight gray one. This would take a little bit more pressure, I feel, so I'm not going to use that today. I'm probably going to use this grit, which is a 3M80, which is quite coarse. And I'm just going to gently rub my edges. I'm just sanding that corner so that it's just not as sharp, if that makes sense. I don't want it as sharp. I want more of a rounded edge. Yikes! As I said, I hope I'm not jiggling you around too much. I'm just going to throw some stuff around, you know, make my life interesting. Again, sand this edge, sand this corner. I have used Woodubend trim rolls for repairing like the whole bottom edges of dressers where missing veneer was that I could not fix, and it has worked like a dream. Look at that, so cute. So today I showed you how to take a 1980s special attache case, right? This is nothing special. This is literal plastic on plastic. I'm not painting leather. People don't have to freak out. Everybody likes to lose their mind when I paint things they think I shouldn't. But I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to paint it anyways. So if you freak out, that's on you. That's not on me. This is a 1980s special attache case, right? It was all brown in color. You can see a little bit of that color peeking through. Plastic. So that means you have to use a product called Bonding Boss. Under the bonding, over the Bonding Boss, I came in and added 1 even coat of burlap. What does the burlap do? If you remember and you're watching the video, what the burlap is going to do is allow you to apply that paper and get a really nice translucent finish, because your paper is rice paper. It's a little bit see-through, okay? So being a little bit see-through, using the burlap underneath allows this paper, when it does get dry, to really shine. It's still damp and still cold to the touch. I can feel it. After I got my paper down, which to apply my paper I used plastic wrap and satin clear coat, I came in with my Woodubend trim roll. Now, this Woodubend trim roll comes in a set of 2. So there's one here for next time. You still have another ready to go. And I save all of my Woodubend bits. I will save this and put this in a drawer because this might be the perfect size for another project. This little Woodubend trim roll is called 718. I did include the link in the description so that if you are looking to shop your own Dixie Belle paint products, you will find them and you will be able to try them out as well. Look how cute that is, you guys. Oh my gosh. How do we feel? Should we do a tiny little experiment just to see what the blue and the red might look like? Let's try it out. Let's try it out. I have some artisan brushes over here. Let's make a little magic and see what happens. We'll start with muscadine wine. I'm going to grab a small brush. Dixie Belle makes artisan brushes. Did you know that? They come in a little kit. I think there's 5. They're nice and small and they're perfect for projects like this. So, what don't I have that I might need? I think I have everything. I'm going to need a rag. I can also tell you that Dixie Belle has a bag of rags, which is perfect for a crafter because you never know how many times you need a lint-free rag. That lint-free rag right there, to buy a little bag of rags like this, saves my life. I need this and I use this all the time. You can also find your bag of rags at dixiebellepaint.com. Okay, so I've got my rag, I've got my muscadine wine. In my brain, this might work, this might be a terrible disaster because this is going to be hard to remove if I hate it from my decoupage paper. Fingers crossed, I like it. So my brain was thinking, take this red and take some water. Take your rag and make almost like a faded red edge. I don't hate it. I actually like that. I like how that looks. See how soft that is? I also, in my head, was thinking to add a little bit of a peachy color to that. I have a very old cottage door sitting here. I'm going to use the same brush. Let me just spray it off with some water so it's not too much red. And grab some of this cottage door. Now, I don't want a ton of pink because I actually don't even know if I'm going to like this. When things are small, like this little box, I tend to do the most. I don't know why. I like to be so over the top with tiny boxes of treasures, but I do. So I want to bring some of that pink out. Ooh, I like it. I like it. What do we think? Do we like that kind of edging combination? It's really picking up the red that's in the floral of this image. I like it, you guys. Should I do it bigger? Should I bring more red out? Or is that like quite enough, miss? You should probably stop there. Drop in the comments below and tell me what you think. So the reason I wanted red is because I was thinking in my brain that adding a contrasting color, a blue to the trim, and of course all of this is going to be heavy black waxed. Heavy black waxed. Let's take a little bit of this beautiful Bunker Hill. I'm not even going to clean my brush. I'm going to use this. Well, that brush has a lot of pink on it. I better not get crazy over here. I'm going to grab a new brush just because that other brush is quite pink. Let's dump a little bit of blue beside here and see what happens for this color combo. Is this blue going to be too dark for this? Should I add maybe mermaid tail? I'm curious to hear my friends in the comment section. Oh, I kind of like, okay, you know what I think? Okay, see this dark blue? I have to reach down and grab my heat gun. Let's dry it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to wipe off some of that pigment from my mermaid tail, which is that really pretty green. That's better. Do you see how that kind of just softens that edge a little bit? That's pretty. Do you like that? You guys, I might be just like a little bit of a genius over here. I like that. I got a little bit down here where the red goes. I'm gonna have to fix that. What do we think of this combination of Bunker Hill, mermaid tail, muscadine wine, cottage door as a trim that will follow all the way around the box? The rest of the box will be a nice beige, similar to this burlap, but I kind of dig that. Do we like that? That's fun. Let me lift it up closer so that you can see how cool that looks. I kind of like that combination. Why shouldn't this be a bold and colorful choice? I almost think I want to do more red. I don't know if maybe I've lost my mind, or the darkness will come back when I add wax. I don't want it as light. I want a little bit more dark. I know that you guys all have an opinion, because let me tell you, everybody on the internet has an opinion. I hear about it every day. When you live your life online, you learn to take the heat, baby. You take the heat. Let's go back and add a little bit, some of that pink. I think it's just going to be a matter of me playing with blending the pink out and the red out. With the black wax, I think it will be very, very pretty. Thoughts? Let me know in the comments below if this is a vibe you're digging, or if you think I've lost my mind, because it could go either way. I'm not really sure. I do like this though. I think that the blue and the red is going to really give this a pop, really give it a pop of color, because this box is kind of going to be a decor box that will sit on a counter maybe, or sit on a shelf. I think that this is going to be a great combination. Stay tuned, friends. I post all of my finished projects on my YouTube, which I have linked. Actually, I think I linked my Facebook page in the description, but you can find me across all social media at the Top Drawer RVA. I am live here on the Dixie Belle Paint page every Wednesday, working on projects big and small, but this is going to be a fun one. I think I figured it out, especially when you put the blue next to the yellow like that. That's really a lot of fun.